everyone's focused on personalization. Brands know that it's something they need to do. They're challenged with how to get there often, whether it's technology or best practices or consulting. But we continue to hear more about hyper-personalization. What does hyper-personalization mean to you, and how do you see that trend going forward?
I think more for hyper-personalization, and I was so glad when I saw that in the top trends and did comment on it. I mean, for us, it's more, what is it not? So it's not when someone does a search of something and then all of a sudden they get an ad for it. It's not when when a marketer looks at the buying behavior and looks at the purchase history and says, now I can send ads. It's not when you deliver a CRM message to a segment, parents, for example, and say, okay, now I'm delivering personalization. So it's more about making sure that customers are feeling not just seen, not just heard, but really understood. And that's where we're saying it's the next level. That hyper-personalization can be a way for brands to make sure that consumers know that they understand where they're coming from. What are their needs? And their needs change. And that's what's so great about hyper-personalization, is that you can continue to deliver offers, content, products, services that are relevant in those moments. And that's the hyper-personalization as well. Because again, just searching for a product and delivering an ad, that is not what hyper-personalization is. And it ties back to that emotional piece, because if you have access to those insights, that context, you are really able to deliver the messaging in a deeper and more relevant way. And that's going to have staying power. So that hyper-personalization is going to be a huge benefit for your brand in the long term.
I think that's critically important. I think, similar to what we were just talking about, the personalization could be taken to a level beyond which your measurement would show that there's additional value being created. And so I think brands do need to create different test versus control and different measurement constructs that allow them to understand, to the degree that we are going down this path and embracing this notion of hyper-personalization, to what degree is it actually increasing our ability to drive a behavior, a desired behavior, a different behavior? And to what degree is that incrementally happening versus if in isolation we took away some of the personalization? So I think there's a lot of almost champion challenger testing that has to happen with the realm of personalization, with some very sound measurement tied to it, so that you truly can understand, to what degree is this actually giving a level of impact and a result that sits well with what the investment is, or what the complexity and the sophistication is required. So from our standpoint, measurement is key. I think, ICF Next, we fortunately have a team of very strong-minded analytics and measurement professionals. I know that a lot of brands have that in-house as well. And so I think for brands, it's important to leverage the assets you have. Where you need additional help and support, you certainly can tap into companies like ICF Next and others in the space that have that ability. But definitely bring that measurement, trust that measurement, and ensure that you are understanding where incremental value is being created and where it's not. That ultimately should form where you go with it.
In the true sense, not a lot of brands are doing it, really well. For me, hyper-personalization would mean I am being spoken to as an individual, and not as your everyday customer, right? So as we talked about zero-party data, I am trusting you to give me the most relevant touch point each and every time. It's not just about the transaction. It's about every time I have an interaction with the brand, I feel like they understand my needs, my requirements, and really cater and pivot their approach based on exactly what I need. So it's what I need, when I need, however I need, and what device I need. So that's for me is hyper-personalization.
Again, hyper-personalization probably has, 10 synonyms, maybe more. But for me, it's really this idea of one-to-one intelligent marketing. So it ties into what we just talked about with zero-party data, first and foremost, is you can't have a hyper-personalized experience without basing it on something about you, Mark, or me, Jake. It can't be general application anymore to be hyper-personalized. In most cases, I think retailers are leveraging technology that really struggles to make data like that actionable in real time on that one-to-one level. And so hyper-personalization is something we don't see a whole lot of today. My opinion is that, as soon as a consumer, as soon as my data is shared with you as a brand, whether I've offered it to you through building my profile, whether I've bought something, whether I've transacted, whether I've entered a sweepstakes, whether I've checked some box, spun some wheel. The expectation is that you guys should very quickly enhance my experience as a consumer based on that new understanding of me. If you're doing that, if you're embracing that, I think you're delivering on this promise of hyper-personalization. And it has to be that, Mark and Jake can walk into the same store as a part of the same loyalty program, but do different things, and we should get very different experiences. That would be the result that a consumer would look for. And I think that would be the definition of hyper-personalization from my perspective.
I think to us, it really means harnessing the data in new ways to really deliver on that individual customer experience. This doesn't mean we put a first name on a piece or we have a different offer. It's about going deeper into that individual customer and their journey. We need to make sure we understand where they're at within the brand, understand the products they're purchasing and what's potentially next for them. We don't want to be focused on the bombardment of messages like we have in the past, but maybe potentially a pullback. If we have a seasonal buyer, are we going to talk to them several times a week? And sometimes some brands even daily. The answer to that should be no. And if it's yes, it's time to reevaluate what we're doing.